Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the rug bracelet. That is the bracelet that looks like horizontal lines and has fringes on the sides. So here is the started one that I'm going to be partially demonstrating. I'm going to also show you how to start it on another one. Now, one of the cool things about this bracelet is that you can actually use scraps to make it. So if you're the kind of person who collects your scraps, you can sort it into different color groups and make this using scraps. Now, I'm not making it using scraps because I'm not the kind of person who saves my scraps. So I'm using just regular skeins of yarn, of embroidery floss. So we are using embroidery floss. I'm using just a random brand I got on Amazon, I believe. And I've already cut my strings. So here I have 6 strings cut to about 20 inches. This one is made with 5 strings cut to 20 inches. You can go as wide as you want, but keep in mind that the fringe is going to add to the width of the bracelet. And here I've selected 6 colors, and again, you could do 20, 30, it does not matter how many colors you do. And for starters, again, this is a bracelet where you can add as you wish, because you're going to be working with individual short threads, so you can keep on cutting more of them. But meanwhile, I cut these to about 8 inches. Sorry, I'm messing up over there. I chose a pretty simple color scheme of 2 colors in 3 different shades each. I cut these to about 8 inches. Now, these I cut to 6 inches. I just did add a little bit more just to be able to have it, you know, for the extra width, for the extra string, even though this one I totally could have gotten away with it, but it leaves it a little more forgiving. And, you know, if it gets annoying to work with, you can even just trim away a little bit while even before you're ready to actually trim the fringe. So it doesn't really matter, but don't go too long because it's just wasteful. So I did 8 inches, and we're going to see how that goes. So now we're going to start off our bracelet. So the way this is like a beginner alpha bracelet, meaning, you know, the alpha is like the counted stitches, working horizontally rather than, you know, just in whichever direction it brings you. Usually you work back and forth. However, this time we're working straight across. And I'm going to start with this bracelet, my favorite way to start off a bracelet so that you get flat edges. And I do have a separate video on this, so you can check that out. But I'm going to start off by using good quality masking tape. Quality does matter, although a little less so on this one, but you don't want to pull your threads out by mistake. And we're just going to be taping them flat at the end. So I'm just taping them in place like that. And that'll hold them as I work. You do want to connect them in some way, whether you're knotting them together, but I like to tape them because then you have a perfectly flat starting point like that. Now, I'm going to fix it to the surface just to show you, even though I hate working on surfaces. I don't usually work on clipboards. I usually work on my hands. Now, this is the kind of bracelet that's actually very hard to do in your hands. I'm mastering it, but I do need to work on my hands because that's just how I work best. Now, you're going to basically be starting out of nowhere, threading on your bracelet. So we're going to start with the darkest purple. You know what? We're going to go lightest to darkest. So that way you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to show you. So you're threading these across in a pattern. Now, one trick that you can do is to tape down each string as you work on it, or to sort of keep a piece of mounting putty. That's just like people call it blue tack. That's what it is. Squish it up a little bit to make it soft and sort of keep it in the general area where you're working to hold down the piece that you're working with. You leave a little out of the side. Now, again, I don't work like this because I just, like I said, work in my hands, but I will show you using mounting putty. And you're starting to make your first knot. Now, it can get confusing. And again, you're going to get used to it, but you basically hold that first string and knot around a forward knot. Again, if you don't know how to make your knots yet, you should watch videos on how to do that. That's the forward knot when you go around and back, and that's one. Now, you can do this anywhere on the string, and I find that it's hard to do it high up, the first knot. I just make it anywhere, wherever it falls naturally. You do another forward, that's forward twice, and then you simply slide it up on the string until the point where you need it. So we're going to move it there. And that's it. So you're going to go across, and you're going to do that around each one. I actually have this thing that I hate showing how to make bracelets on the first row because it's always very unclear. It's, you know, and the first row is one of the least visible in the bracelets. In fact, if you know how I finish these off, I sometimes even get rid of it at the end, or hide it under, you know, the clasp that I put. I really don't like showing it on the first row, but so I'm just going to show the first row or the first few rows. And again, I can really clamp these on the other end to make it hold straight, but I'm going to do that for the next one. So I'm going around each string in forward knots. And I'm going to switch to the other bracelet to show you the next row. All right, so that's one row complete. Now you're going to continue with the next color. Now I like to go either darkest to lightest, lightest to darker, so that's going to be that one. And then the next one, and you're going to add each string in the same way. It's pretty straightforward. It's a very easy bracelet to learn. Now I'm going to show you on this one, I'm going to show you the next row. So let's do this. So I'm going to spread this out a little bit better and clamp it on the other end. All right, so here you can see it's the ones that I started. I'm going to show you the next row, which is going to be that dark blue. And I'm going to show you how I do it without taping it down. So I literally just hold the string and hold that string against it. Because that's how I always work my friendship bracelets, I'm really just holding that in place. And don't worry if you crossed it over or whatever, you didn't knot it or anything. You're leaving a little bit extra at the beginning. You're going and doing a single forward knot and then completing the forward knot, or I should say the half hitch or whatever. Each one is called a hitch. And I'm sliding it to the top. And then the next ones, I'm working already in position. So I'm going to show you me doing a few rows just so you can get the vibe of how I do it. I don't do well on video, so I think I might have made a mistake there, but basically if you saw me make a mistake, don't do the mistake. So that's where we're going to leave it at. Now I'm taking the medium blue, and again, I'm just starting. This is how I work in my hands on the couch, holding it against, just to hold it in position, tying it around once, tying it around the second time, sliding it up to the top, and that's it. And then you continue the next row, and I'm going to speed this up so you can watch me work. Now, one color selection tip that I will tell you is to choose colors inspired from nature. You can see the one that I started with is purple and green. That's very reminiscent of flowers. Think violets or anything really that are any purple flowers that are that have green leaves. And this is kind of like the sky and the sun. So you can select simple 2-color palettes, but use gradated versions of those colors and pull those colors from things that actually exist. And it doesn't have to be fully from nature. Look around your house. Is there a piece of furniture that you love? Go and choose the color combination that you have on that furniture. Choose the deep burgundies and greens of a Persian rug. Choose colors from the things around you that you love. You can, of course, always go and get fancy color matching whatever stuff, or even a color wheel, which can be quite helpful if you tend to need inspiration. I actually have a book from Pantone that I sometimes use. However, really, just look around you, and that's where your color inspiration should be. And then you continue on like this, and it is such a forgiving bracelet. You know why? Because if you make a mistake, you can just unhook the other end. At one point, I used the wrong color, and you can literally slide the whole row off, and it is the center strand that's holding the knots together. You could gently nudge the whole thing down and just pull that row off, and you can even reuse that string. Just go back and do the color that you missed, for example, and just continue as you wanted to, as you were supposed to. All right, so apparently I stopped recording as I speak. So here you can see I finished knotting the length of the bracelet that I want, taking into account the clasp. And so just so that it doesn't get undone at the end, I'm going to be sealing the back of this bracelet. So I just used matte Mod Podge, and I went along the back, and I just trying to get, into the edges so that I get into the knots, but not too much on the fringe. I sealed it. Now, in this video, on this bracelet, I did get a little too much on the fringe. My fringe came out stiffer, and it was fine. But you definitely want to try to avoid that, but still somehow get the knots. So I think the trick is kind of to use a brush that isn't overly loaded. So go ahead and do that, and then finish it up and let it dry completely before proceeding.
All right, so now we need to cut that fringe, and we do want to do it evenly. So what I'm doing is I'm using a very narrow washi tape, and I'm going to be taping it on right over there in that corner. And to be honest with you, the one that I used was a pretty cheap one, and it didn't stick very well, but it still worked well as a guide just to make sure that I'm cutting my fringe in a straight line. So quality does help when it comes to this type of thing. And I definitely recommend that if you are able to, you get a better washi tape. But I'm definitely trying to use what I already have. So put it on, starting with one side, just put it there up against the knotted part of your bracelet. Press it down as well as you can. Next, you're going to flip your bracelet over so that you could see the actual fringe. And the reason I did this was so that then I can make sure that my fringe is kind of sitting straight as I cut it. And, kind of rolled it down on the washi tape so that it was sitting straight and pulled it tight. And I trimmed it using the back side of the, so that I could see the back of the bracelet. Excuse me, it's actually the front of the bracelet. My tape was on the back, but I wanted to see the back of the tape so I could actually see the fringe that I'm trimming. Now, I usually try to be clear when you need quality craft supplies, when you don't. Like I said, I did use a cheap embroidery floss. However, for your scissors, you definitely want good quality detail scissors so that you get a clean cut, especially if you're more particular about the results. If you're doing this just for fun, it doesn't really matter. But I did use the detail scissors from my set of Singer scissors. So once I finished cutting the one side, I moved the tape over to the other side and I proceeded to do the same thing on the other side of the bracelet. So I went ahead and did that part off camera just because it's literally the same thing. And now I'm going to show you just how I am, brushing out the edges using a steel brush that's actually meant for like sanding details and stuff like that. But it worked perfectly for this, just a wire brush, I think it's called. And I just gently combed out those fringes. If you Mod Podge too much, this won't be as effective. But if you didn't Mod Podge that much, it's going to make it look so much more gorgeous because it separates the strands of the bracelet so you don't look like you have just continuing embroidery floss. You get actual fringe over there. So the Rug Friendship Bracelet is really complete, and I do have a separate video for finishing it off, but in a nutshell, I'm going to glue the ends, and then I'm going to attach clasps over it after I trim off my extra thread. And there you have the gorgeous finished Rug Friendship Bracelet clasp attached. You may want to trim it out a little bit more after the combing process, which I believe I did on the other one, and I'm going to show you that one as well. And there you have it. How gorgeous is that? It's totally wearable, and it totally looks sophisticated with that clasp on. This bracelet is a great way to use up scraps or just use full skeins of floss if you prefer to do it that way. It is so much fun to make and it is so easy once you get the hang of starting off each row. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button so that more people can see it. Give me a follow to encourage me to create more fun content like this. And of course, comment if you have any questions. Feel free to let me know which bracelet tutorial you'd like to see next.